Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Congregational Church of Littleton's Facebook page. So glad you could join me this evening. Excuse me. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. So tonight, we are reading again from the Jesus Storybook Bible by Sally Lloyd-Jones. And the story we are going to read tonight is called A Giant Staircase to Heaven, and it's about the Tower of Babel from Genesis 11. This is where we're going to be this evening. So Noah and his family lived in the land, and his children had children, and those children had more children, and then those children had even more. Well, you get the picture. Until there were lots of people on earth once more. Now, back then, everyone spoke exactly the same language, so you didn't need to learn Swahili or Japanese or anything because you could say hello to anyone and they knew what you meant. One day, everyone was walking and they came up with an idea. Let's build ourselves a beautiful city to live in. It can be our home. And we'll be safe forever and ever. Then they had another idea. And let's build a really tall tower to reach up to heaven. Look at what they are building there. Yes, they said. Well, we'll say, look at us up here, and everyone will look up at us, and we'll look down on them, and then we'll know we are something. We'll be like God. We'll be famous and safe and happy, and everything will be all right. So they got to work, brick by brick. The tower grew higher and higher until it soared above the city, touching the sky. They built stairs in the tower to climb to the top. It was like a giant staircase to heaven. Look, they cheered. We're the ones. See what we can do with our very own hands. They were quite pleased with themselves. But God wasn't pleased with them. God could see what they were doing. They were trying to live without him. But God knew that wouldn't make them happy, or safe, or anything. If they kept on like this, they would only destroy themselves, and God loved them too much to let that happen. So he stopped their plans. One morning, they went to work as usual, but everything was different. Their words were all new and funny. You see, God had given each person a completely different language. Suddenly, no one understood what anyone else was saying. Someone would say, "How do you do?" and the other person thought they said, "How ugly are you?" It wasn't funny. You could be saying something nice like, "Such a lovely morning," and get a punch in the nose because they thought you said, "Hush up, you're boring." You couldn't even say pardon to check if you'd heard right because no one understood that word either. It wasn't easy to work together after that, as you could only imagine. People were always quarreling and fighting and getting into dreadful muddle and becoming grumpier and grumpier, until at last they were all too cross to keep on building, and it just had to stop. After that, the people scattered all over the world, which is how we ended up with so many different languages to this day. You see, God knew, however high they reached, however hard they tried, people could never get back to heaven by themselves. People didn't need a staircase. They needed a rescuer, because the way back to heaven wasn't a staircase. It was a person. People could never reach up to heaven, so heaven would have to come down to them. And one day it would. Ooh, that is the end of the story. Wow. Could you imagine? So we read a couple weeks ago about Noah. And so they lived on this land now, right? they have this land, the flood's gone, and they've lived here for a really long time, and now repopulated everything. Their kids had kids, and then their kids had kids, and then everybody had kids, and now you have all these people in this land. And then they decide, we need a city, we need a place to live. We need housing, keep some shelter. Let's build it for ourselves. And then they decided to build a tall tower. They wanted to be like God. They wanted to reach all the way up to heaven. They wanted people to look up at them and see how great they were. Well, if they did that, right, they wouldn't be thinking so much about God. So God, because he loved them and did want to keep them safe, had to do something about it. There was a consequence. He gave them all a different language. Could you imagine if you woke up one morning and you said hello to someone in your family and they spoke in a different language? And they said something back to you and you were like, oh my goodness, what was that? I wonder how it would feel like to know that you couldn't understand the people around you and that they couldn't understand you. I wonder about that. I wonder how that felt. In this story, they got angry. I wonder how you would feel if that happened. I wonder if you'd be angry about it or maybe sad about it. I wonder about that. And then I wonder what would happen next? How would you solve that problem of everybody speaking differently? What would happen with that? Not everybody's speaking the same language. You can't all understand each other. How are we going to make this work? Well, it seems like in this story, they all separated and went their own ways around the world. I wonder what other solutions they could have come up with for that problem. So that is our story for this evening, and some wondering that we get to do together. So throughout your week, just think about different things to wonder about. Maybe you can come up with your own language during the week and say something and see if somebody in your family understands what you're saying. I wonder what that would be like. Give it a try. Well, it was nice to be with you this evening, and I hope to see you again next Wednesday for our next Wondering Wednesday, when we will read the next story in our storybook Bible called The Son of Laughter. Can't wait to read what that one's about. And then on Friday, please join me for our Zoom classes. I think this week, I can't remember which story we're reading off the top of my head, but I think it was On the Day You Were Born, I think is the name of the story. I think that was it. So join me on our Zoom classes on Friday. I hope to see you there for Faithful Friday. And if you need an invite and don't have one, just send me a message and I'll get you one. All right, everybody, let's end with a prayer. Dear God, thank you for giving us this time together. And thank you for giving us each other. And thank you for being there for us where we can feel welcomed and safe and be happy. Amen. Bye, everybody.